What's up, beautiful people? Today we're taking a look at transatlantic trade. What are the impacts of all the exploration, colonization, and Columbian exchanging we've been talking about thus far is the development of an Atlantic economy. The term transatlantic trade can be kind of scary, but all it means is trade across the Atlantic Ocean, or as some might say, across the pond. During the period of colonization, we have been studying that is trade that is conducted between Europe, the Americas, and Africa. As a result of this trade, an Atlantic economy developed in which not only goods like tobacco, fur, and sugar were exchanged between Europe, Africa, and the Americas, but also, sadly, people, largely enslaved Africans. We often refer to this exchange of goods and people between Europe, Africa, and the Americas as the triangular trade. But the reality is these trade routes took a variety of patterns and they end up looking like a triangle that would be drawn by my 2-year-old daughter. One example of the triangular trade can be seen as enslaved people were forcibly brought from Africa to the Western Hemisphere. Ships left from Europe to Africa, and those goods from Europe, things like textiles, rum, and manufactured goods, were used to trade for slaves that would be transported to the Western Hemisphere. The journey in between Africa and the Americas was known as the Middle Passage, and crossing the Atlantic Ocean was horrific as ships were packed to capacity as they made the nearly 2-month-long voyage to the New World. While we don't have clear numbers, it is estimated that around 20% of those individuals forced to make this journey died even before arriving. Crappy fact of the day, even after ratification of the Constitution, the importation of slaves would continue for another 20 years, all the way up until 1808. Slavery, of course, would last a lot longer than that. From the colonies went raw materials that were not readily available in Europe. Items like sugar, fur, tobacco, rice, and other raw materials were all items highly valued in Europe and transported from the Western Hemisphere to Europe. Thinking about what is happening here, both the good and the horrible, in the 17th and 19th century, trade was taking on a global scale that it had never experienced before. Today we often talk about globalization and the changes and challenges it brings to different communities. This process we're learning about here in the 17th and 18th centuries is a step towards that global economy. All of the colonial powers, whether Spain, France, or England, sought to incorporate their colonies into the mercantilist system. The economic theory behind the establishment and development of the colonies was known as mercantilism. The idea behind a mercantilist system was to maintain a favorable balance of trade. You want to export more goods than you import, and in the process of doing so, you increase the share of your country's gold and silver. Another reason for the colonies was to provide the mother country, for instance Britain, with raw materials. Basically, mama country gotta eat. In addition, the idea behind mercantilism was also that the colonies would be markets for manufactured goods from Europe. This process is not going to happen on its own, and as a result, the British government increasingly attempted to incorporate its North American colonies into a coherent, hierarchical, and imperial structure in order to pursue mercantilist economic aims. To do this, laws such as the Navigation Acts were passed. The Navigation Acts did things like require trade from the 13 colonies to be conducted on British ships. In addition, certain goods could only be sent to British ports so they could be taxed, or could only be traded to Britain. As a result, the Navigation Acts guaranteed England would have access to raw materials from the colonies, and the colonies would serve as a market for English manufactured products. The purpose of these laws and other mercantile laws were to ensure the colonies were going to continue to be profitable for the mother country. Remember, mama country gots to eat. Another factor contributing to these mercantile laws was also to protect these trade networks from competing European powers. Britain does not want France or Spain messing with their colonies. As a result of all this developing, port cities such as Boston and Charleston became very profitable, and a merchant class of colonists emerged. However, this system was not exactly without flaws. For one, the North American colonies were reliant on imported manufactured goods from England. They're not really manufacturing goods in the colonies themselves. And you all know the famous saying, mo money, mo problems. Some colonists sought to trade with other European powers and found ways to avoid compliance with the mercantilist policies. Luckily for the colonies, it was not until 1763 that the British would really seek to enforce the laws on the colonists. 1763 is the time when the period known as solitary neglect comes to an end. After after the French and Indian War, in which England is in debt and they want the colonies to help pay for the empire. But we'll handle that on another day. In our next video, I will take a look at interactions between American Indians and Europeans. Until next time, thank you so much for watching this Jocz Productions video. Have a beautiful day. Peace.